through all this fog. Is it always like this?
Seems like every time we come out here it gets worse. Now we can barely see anything but each other.
This isn't fog. If you can't see anything out here, what have you been doing on all of your reconnaissance missions?
Fishing.
Fishing? Even though we couldn't see, we knew there were things around us. We kept bumping into them and tripping over them. It was driving us crazy.
Yeah. We'd be covered in all kinds of weird junk we'd never seen before, and though we couldn't recognize it, we could see it. So we figured that if small things became visible to us once we left the outside, maybe the same thing might happen if we caught something bigger.
So we started dragging around these big fishing nets. Whatever we'd catch, we'd bring back, see what it could teach us about the outside. What kind of things did you learn about the outsiders? The only thing we ever really learned was that stuff from our world was just as invisible outside as things from the outside were to us. That's how we started making armor.
It's also how we found our way back home. Once we got far enough away from the museum to lose sight of it, we'd start tearing pieces of our armor off and leaving it behind, like breadcrumbs.
You also learned something else about the outside when you caught that biotechnician. Eden, did you know that they caught a biotechnician? And they killed it! That means that
I know what it means. I've always known they weren't immortal. Cheating death isn't the same thing as eliminating it. There's still a wilderness on the other side of that dome, and outsiders don't control it.
Is that power going to be able to find us out there?
It will always find us. We created it.
Hey, I didn't create a monster.
Our nature created it.
We all feed it. Every time we look away from something because it frightens us,
Or we don't understand it, or it doesn't benefit us, we feed that monster. There is no destroying it. There's only fighting back so it doesn't control you. All I want to find on the other side is people who are still fighting.
invisible forces and monsters that eat our fear. I'm sorry, but none of that is possible.
After everything that's happened, you still don't believe me? You need proof? Look around you. This isn't fog. This is what's left when we turn away from anything that doesn't suit our own self-interest. What isn't seen becomes forgotten. What's forgotten becomes lost.
We won't make the same mistakes as the biotechnicians. We'll make a better world on the other side no matter what we find. I'm a heroine. I'm an enemy. I am whatever you need.
Meet me at the top, or pretend to be. Play what you want, just play with me.
We've got amputation. Wear a leg
Please state your name,
G3696.
biological year of transition,
17.
years of being.
The same.
This is not a disciplinary hearing. We understand that after your 3-week disappearance, you voluntarily returned to your ward with no recollection of how long you had been gone or your whereabouts. After a series of procedures, you were able to retrieve memories of the experience, though you were convinced they were a delusion caused by your disability. After your brain modification, you were able to accept that the encounter had really happened and notified the proper channels. Any wrongdoing on your part was a result of your disability and pre-transitional state. The purpose of this interview is to discuss the existence of biological humans. Before we decide on a course of action, we need to gather as much information about your experience with the primitives as we can.
I'll tell you everything I can remember.
Approximately how many primitives are there?
No more than 20.
Describe their appearance.
Malnourished, underweight, weak. They have developed what they believe is evolutionary side effects as a result of the displacement from their natural habitat.
Describe the side effects.
Bruising, hair discoloration, growth on their skin. I do not believe they are evolving. I believe that these are symptoms of their decline. In the beginning, there were many, but only a few women have managed to survive this long.
All the primitives are female?
Yes, and they appear to be from proximate regions of similar intellect and maturity. There are 2 exceptions to the pattern. One is primitive, who is 11 years of age, born after the ascension.
How did reproduction occur if there are only females present?
She was conceived shortly before the last of the men died.
And what is the other exception?
She has developed characteristics associated with the primitive feline.
What characteristics?
Heightened senses, an ability to move with stealth, patches of fur, claw-like appendages.
Does the mutant interact with the others?
She doesn't speak, but is able to listen and communicate. Her allegiance is to the alpha.
Much like a domesticated feline. That's interesting. Aside from the mutant, how do the others interact? Do they live peacefully with each other? Do they act in their own self-interest, or the interest of society?
They all work together for survival. Even those with conflicting ideologies, the majority of the primitives are peaceful. They exhibit the personal conflicts and weakness associated with their world. Fear, delusion, lack of purpose. However, there's a subgroup of dissenters who are more organized and are working closely to achieve a common goal.
What is their goal?
They are gathering information about our world. They are attempting to find a way to restore it to the primitive state.
Do you believe they are a threat to us?
Due to their insignificant numbers, biological disadvantages, and lack of resources, I believe they pose no threat.
How do they gather their information?
They go on what they call reconnaissance missions, where they steal objects from our world and take them back to their habitat for further examination.
How do they travel in our world without being discovered? Do they have any special skills or weapons?
They believe that people from our world can't see anything primitive when they travel outside their habitat. They wear clothing concealed in relics from the old world, and they largely communicate through primitive ritual called singing.
There is no known instance of an object becoming invisible because it is unrecognizable. Can you think of any other explanation for their ability to stay hidden?
I believe that if I had encountered the primitives after my transformation was complete, I would have never seen them. The naked eye cannot see a speck of dust. I believe that they are too far removed from our biological humans and have become too insignificant to us that we no longer have the inclination to consider them.
Interesting. So you believe that if we were consciously looking for biological humans, we might be able to detect them?
Yes, a sanitation patrolling machine picks up any relics it finds and deposits them into the primitive habitat. Since this device can detect relics, you should be able to use it to track the others down.
Should I take this to disposal?
Disposal's at capacity right now. They just recovered the last of the bodies from the mess, and they all need to be incinerated.
It's unfortunate we couldn't procure the mutant alive for more extensive research.
The objective was to exterminate the entire species and its habitat as quickly as possible. As long as they are extinct, there is no need for additional research. Besides, the effect of a laceration from a primitive object is unknown.
All agents are needed at the crux immediately. All agents are needed at the crux immediately. Should I put this somewhere until disposal is ready for them?
We'll have to clean up later. If the crux needs assistance, it must be an emergency.
I've never been inside the crux. I've always wanted to see how it operates.
Your curiosity is a weakness, and maybe your downfall if you don't master it.
Maybe the crux